Hey guys, Lyle here. I hope you'll enjoy this report that I kind of threw together on the latest Wikileaks CIA dump. It's a pretty brief thing. I just figured I'd pull out, the Wikileaks press release, a few articles from some different sources, go through them, give a little bit of commentary, help you guys stay better informed out there. So here it is. I hope you enjoy. Something to keep in mind while you're listening: if you hear 0 day or 0 hour, all that really means is that it's a vulnerability in the system and the technology that has not been officially reported on yet. So it's basically the hackers got there first. So just keep that in mind while we're working through this. Thanks.
WikiLeaks press release. WikiLeaks begins its new series of leaks on the U.S. Central Intelligence Agency. Codenamed Vault 7 by WikiLeaks, it is the largest ever publication of confidential documents on the agency. The first full part of the series, called Year Zero, comprises 8,761 documents and files from an isolated, high-security network situated inside the CIA's Center for Cyber Intelligence in Langley, Virginia. It follows an introductory disclosure last month of the CIA's targeting of French political parties and candidates in the lead up to their 2012 presidential election. Recently, the CIA lost control of the majority of its hacking arsenal, including malware, viruses, trojans, weaponized zero-day exploits, malware remote control systems, and associated documentation. This extraordinary collection, which amounts to more than several hundred million lines of code, gives its possessor the entire hacking capacity of the CIA. The archive appears to have circulated among former U.S. government hackers and contractors in an unauthorized manner, one of whom has provided WikiLeaks with portions of the archive. Year Zero introduces the scope and direction of the CIA's global covert hacking program, its malware arsenal, and dozens of zero-day weaponized exploits against a wide range of U.S. and European company products, including Apple's iPhone, Google's Android and Microsoft Windows, and even Samsung TVs, which are turned into covert microphones. Since 2001, the CIA has gained political and budgetary preeminence over the U.S. National Security Agency. The CIA found itself building not just its now infamous drone fleet, but a very different type of covert, globe-spanning force, its own substantial fleet of hackers. The agency's hacking division freed it from having to disclose its often controversial operations to the NSA, its primary bureaucratic rival, in order to draw on the NSA's hacking capabilities. By the end of 2016, the CIA's hacking division, which formerly falls under the agency's Center for Cyber Intelligence, has had over 5,000 registered users and had produced more than 1,000 hacking systems, trojans, viruses, and other weaponized malware. Such is the scale of the CIA's undertaking that by 2016, its hackers had utilized more code than that used to run Facebook. The CIA had created, in effect, its own NSA with even less accountability and without publicly answering the questions as to whether such a massive budgetary spend on duplicating the capacities of a rival agency could be justified. In a statement to WikiLeaks, the source details policy questions that they say urgently need to be debated in public, including whether the CIA's hacking capabilities exceed its mandated powers and the problem of public oversight of the agency. The sources wish to initiate a public debate about the security, creation, use, proliferation, and democratic control of cyber weapons. Once a single cyber weapon is loose, it can spread around the world in seconds to be used by rival states, cyber mafia, and teenage hackers alike. Julian Assange, WikiLeaks editor, stated that, quote, "There is an extreme proliferation risk in the development of cyber weapons. Comparisons can be drawn between the uncontrolled proliferation of such weapons, which results from the inability to contain them combined with their high market value, and the global arms trade. But the significance of Year Zero goes well beyond the choice between cyber war and cyber peace. The disclosure is also exceptional from a political, legal, and forensic perspective." End quote. WikiLeaks has carefully reviewed the Year Zero disclosure and published substantive CIA documentation while avoiding the distribution of armed cyber weapons until a consensus emerges on the technical and political nature of the CIA's program and how such weapons should be analyzed, disarmed, and published. WikiLeaks has also decided to redact and anonymize some identifying information in Year Zero for in-depth analysis. These redacted were aware of the imperfect results of any approach chosen. We remain committed to our publishing model and note that the quantity of published pages in Vault 7, Part 1, quote, Year 0, already eclipses the total number of pages published over the first 3 years of the Edward Snowden NSA leaks. For analysis, we first turn to NPR's Kamila Domonoske. For analysis, we'll first turn to NPR's Kamila Domonoske and her article entitled "The CIA Document Dump Isn't Exactly Snowden 2.0. Here's Why." Wikileaks is billing its latest document dump as the largest leak of CIA material in the history of the spy agency, and describes cutting-edge ways to hack into phones, computers, and even televisions connected to the internet. The thousands of documents, many of which are highly technical, are said to be internal CIA guides on how to create and use cyber spying tools, from turning smart TVs into bugs to designing customized USB drives to extract information from computers. The CIA has refused to comment on the authenticity of the documents. The full ramifications of the release are still not clear, but the case immediately calls to mind the 2013 episode when Edward Snowden, then a National Security Agency contractor, provided a trove of documents on that agency's surveillance programs. But there are significant differences between the two revelations. Here's a look at what we know so far about the CIA leaks and how it compares with the NSA case 4 years ago. The NSA collected American data. No evidence the CIA is doing so. The Edward Snowden leaks revealed the NSA was collecting bulk data on Americans' phone usage, which was ruled to be illegal. The CIA spies abroad and is barred by law from doing so domestically. Neither Wikileaks nor anyone else is alleging that the CIA is using these methods inside the United States. I can tell you these tools would not be used against an American. Michael Hayden, the former director of both the CIA and NSA, told CBS's The Late Show with Stephen Colbert. NSA develops tools. CIA develops tools that we can use. We just went through the drill about how you get a warrant and how you've got to get a judge, Hayden added. That protects you and me, all U.S. citizens, all the time. But there are people out there you want us to spy on. You want us to have the ability to actually turn on that listening device inside the TV to learn that person's intentions. Inside the U.S., the FBI or another domestic law enforcement agency would typically go to court to get permission to tap the phone of a suspect. WikiLeaks did not provide examples of how any of these CIA tools might have been used. CIA spokeswoman Heather Fritz-Horniak, without confirming the authenticity of the documents, tells NPR that the agency is legally prohibited from conducting electronic surveillance targeting individuals here at home, including our fellow Americans, and CIA does not do so. Cybersecurity experts say the agency is sure to be poring over the documents that were disclosed to see how it might affect its operations around the globe. The NSA often worked in bulk. The CIA is targeting individuals. Snowden's leak revealed bulk collection of data, not just of American phone data, but conversations abroad, including all the calls in an entire country. It included surveillance on a massive scale as well as efforts targeting individuals. If the NSA's surveillance was often casting a broad net, the CIA's hackers are mostly spearfishing based on the alleged agency documents. A lot of these are endpoint attacks, like, can we compromise your router, your iOS device, or your Android device, says Matthew Green, a cryptography and associate professor at Johns Hopkins University. Those things don't scale. You don't do them to hundreds of thousands of people, you do them to one or two. That's not just because of the amount of time and effort involved. It's also because of the many techniques rely on a loophole. That's not just because of the amount of time and effort involved. It's also because of the many That's not just because of the amount of time and effort involved. It's also because many of the techniques rely on a loophole or flaw in a software system. The more you exploit the flaw, the more likely a manufacturer is to notice it and fix it. The NSA discussed creating vulnerabilities. The CIA exploits them. The documents suggest that the CIA has been exploiting vulnerabilities and not telling companies about them. That's controversial. If government agencies, the Obama administration nodded to the importance of revealing such bugs, while reserving the right to stay mum on them if there's an urgent and significant national security priority. But while the CIA appears to have not disclosed vulnerabilities, the NSA leaks revealed something far more alarming, Green says. In the NSA leaks, there was a project called Bull Run, where the NSA was talking about introducing vulnerabilities into crypto standards, and that's really serious, because that's going well above finding vulnerabilities to make them, he says. There's nothing like that, as far as I see, in these CIA documents. Other leaks featured program overviews. These are developer notes. The NSA leaks included revealing easily comprehensible documents, memos about a program's goals and scope, slideshows about why and how a technology worked, details about where systems were being deployed, and how many people were affected. Basically, that leak included lots of documents designed to explain what the NSA was doing, albeit never meant for public consumption. The U.S. diplomatic cables that WikiLeaks disclosed in 2010, meanwhile, were highly embarrassing for the U.S. government because they were filed with actual cases involving foreign... The U.S. diplomatic cables that WikiLeaks disclosed in 2010, meanwhile, were highly embarrassing for the U.S. government because they were filled with actual cases involving foreign individuals and leaders. The alleged CIA documents, in contrast, are internal files used by developers with lots of program specifications, but a dearth of details about how or why the technology was actually used. In some cases, it's not clear if the program was used or was just being tested. This is a developer chat on how they build these tools, says Nicholas Weaver, a computer lead. Details about when, why, and where the programs were used and with what results. This information is not included in the release. Snowden, the NSA whistleblower, calls the CIA leaks a big deal. Snowden, who has been in Russia since shortly after he fled the United States in 2013 at the time of his disclosures, has been tweeting about the latest WikiLeaks disclosure. He's highly critical of the CIA and U.S. government, saying it's reckless beyond words to find vulnerabilities in the software of smartphones and other electronic devices, and then exploit them rather than inform the companies so they could patch them. Still working through the publication, but what @WikiLeaks has here is genuinely a big deal. Looks authentic, he tweeted initially on Tuesday, followed by, evidence mounts showing the CIA and FBI knew about catastrophic weaknesses in the most used smartphones in America, but kept them open to spy. And later, imagine a world where the actual CIA spends its time figuring out how to spy on you through your TV. That's today. Snowden faces criminal charges in the U.S., but Russia recently said it wouldn't extend... Snowden faces criminal charges in the United States, but Russia recently said it would extend Snowden's asylum until 2020. And lastly, a quick note on Russia. Like Russia, WikiLeaks is shaping up as a key actor in the early days of the Trump presidency. Trump and his campaign team cheered on WikiLeaks as it dribbled out Democratic Party emails during the presidential race last year. Now Trump will have to deal with the fallout of the latest WikiLeaks dump that reveals the secrets of what is now his CIA. The U.S. intelligence community concluded that Russia hacked the Democratic targets last year and then gave the documents to WikiLeaks to disclose. WikiLeaks and Russia. The Russians are, however, extremely interested in the contents as part of the ongoing espionage battle between the U.S. and Russia. And that wraps up her article, and I should note, I don't really see a source on the claim that Russians are extremely interested in the contents of the ongoing espionage battle between... I mean, I guess that is kind of assumed, but it's an interesting little thing to throw in at the end of an article without a source. So next we'll look at a Fox News report titled Spicer, quote, "We will go after people who leak classified information," end quote. At a press briefing on Wednesday, White House Press Secretary Sean Spicer reacted to a bombshell WikiLeaks release that allegedly reveals the entire hacking capacity of the CIA. According to purported internal CIA documents, the agency uses high-tech phones and televisions to spy on people worldwide. To hide its operations, the CIA routinely adopted hacking techniques that enabled them to appear as if they were hackers in foreign countries, such as Russia, WikiLeaks alleged. Spicer said that President Trump is, quote, extremely concerned, unquote, about this leaked information and, if true, what impact it could have on U.S. national security. This comes just weeks after former National Security Advisor Michael Flynn's phone calls with the Russian ambassador were leaked to the press. Spicer said that the Trump administration is committed to holding anyone caught leaking classified information to the full extent of the law. Quote, we will go after people who leak classified information, Spicer said. He continued, playing with our nation's national security is not something that should be taken lightly under this administration. So, pretty short and sweet and to the point, which is pretty typical from Fox News. Interesting there that they include the part about the hackers could make it look like they were coming from Russia, which would have obviously pretty serious implications on the security community's investigations into the ties between Russia and the Trump campaign. Up next, we have a CBSNews.com article by Jeff Pegways entitled FBI Opens Investigation into CIA Document Theft and WikiLeaks Release. The FBI has opened an investigation into the theft and posting of the alleged CIA documents released on the WikiLeaks website, reports CBS News' Andres Triay. U.S. intelligence sources say the data released by WikiLeaks Tuesday is being examined to determine the authenticity of the alleged leak, which contained thousands of documents purported to be CIA secret files detailing hacking tools the government uses to break into users' computers, mobile phones, and smart TVs. Sources say there is an effort to sift through the data to see what is real. So far, the intelligence community is reacting to the data as if it is authentic, and as if it's yet another embarrassing security breach. Officially, the CIA says it has no comment on the offense. A CIA spokesperson did point out that the CIA is legally prohibited from conducting electronic surveillance targeting individuals here at home, including our fellow Americans, and the CIA does not do so. One key question for intelligence analysts now is the timing of the release. Why did WikiLeaks release the information Tuesday? Investigators have pointed to other WikiLeaks disclosures over the last 8 months and note that they usually appeared to be timed to coincide with certain events during the 2016 campaign. For example, some of the emails of Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta were publicly posted on the same day that the Access Hollywood tape was released. On the tape, then GOP candidate for President Donald Trump was captured on video making crude comments about women. WikiLeaks says the data was provided by a former U.S. government hacker or contractor, which suggests that this was an inside job. The investigation into the incident is expected to include the FBI, since there will likely be an examination into whether there was collusion between WikiLeaks and others. At this time, the CIA is not commenting on the authenticity of the data, nor is the spy agency prepared to announce that an investigation is officially underway. However, the effort to find the how, why, and what has already begun. Okay, so that's from CBS, as I said. A little strange, two things to note. They mention the Podesta emails. They mention the Access Hollywood tape, which presumably most readers would be familiar with both. They mention kind of the content of the Hollywood tape, in which we all know Trump was kind of caught talking about how rich and famous women often let him grab them by the pussy. It doesn't mention anything about the content or the context of the John Podesta emails, which in some circumstances were showed that there was a collusion within the Democratic Party to keep Bernie Sanders off the final ballot and get who they perceive to be the stronger candidate, Hillary Clinton, on that ballot. So I think that's interesting. And again, another one of these kind of strange, uncited claims at the end where it just kind of throws it in there. Quote, they say, however, the effort to find the how, why, and what has already begun, immediately after saying that the spy agency is not ready to officially announce an investigation. So, again, a little bit strange, kind of falls apart at the end there. And the final article we'll take a look at here comes from Wired.com. I thought it would be interesting to get kind of the more techie side of what's going on and kind of see what the people who spend their every day reading about this sort of cybersecurity stuff. So this article is called "The CIA Leak Exposes Tech's Vulnerable Future" by Jason Tanz. Yesterday's WikiLeaks dump reiterated something we already knew. Our devices are fundamentally unsafe. No matter what kind of encryption we use, no matter which secure messaging apps we take care to run, no matter how careful we are to sign up for two-factor authentication, the CIA, and we have to assume other hackers, can infiltrate our operating systems, take control of our cameras and microphones, and bend our phones to their will. The same can be said of smart TVs, which could be made to surreptitiously record our living room conversations, and internet-connected cars, which could potentially be commandeered and even crashed. Previous security revelations told us that our data wasn't safe. The Vault 7 leak reminded us that our machines aren't secure, and because those machines live in our homes and on our bodies, they rendered our homes and bodies insecure as well. There's a word for these flaws and holes in code that leave us open to harm, and it's the same word for the unease that accompanies them: vulnerability. Take the iPhone, a single example among many, but an especially instructive one. Last year, while fighting the FBI's request to access the iPhone of the San Bernardino shooter, Apple's CEO Tim Cook presented his company as a bulwark against intruders. Customers expect Apple and other technology companies to do everything in our power to protect their personal information, he wrote. Now, like a child learning of his parents' inability to prevent bad things from happening, we understand Cook's promises to be unfulfillable. This morning, Apple announced that it had already patched most of these holes, but we can never know if there aren't others out there, unbeknownst to us or the company. If we feel freshly vulnerable, we are not alone. The darlings of the tech industry, which for much of the past decade have convincingly presented themselves as swaggering inevitabilities, are showing signs of vulnerability as well. Google and Facebook, which pride themselves as algorithmically pristine information delivery systems, fell prey to fake news mills and virulent troll armies. Uber's scorched earth approach to capitalism and human resources, which once made its seemingly indomitable competitor, now threatened to sink its once bulletproof CEO. The more powerful and inevitable something appears, the more startling and devastating its weaknesses are when they are exposed. Or, to borrow a phrase, the harder they come, the harder they fall. That's useful to remember when you consider the information we are currently undergoing. That's useful to remember when you consider the transformation we are currently, one in which more and more of our devices become connected to the internet. Whether you call it the Internet of Things, or the Internet of Everything, or the Third Wave, or even the programmable world, this long-predicted moment when connectivity becomes as ubiquitous as electricity is nearly upon us. The benefits will be staggering. A world that will know us and adjust to our needs and desires, a universe of data that will impart new wisdom. But so will the vulnerabilities, the opportunities for our worlds to be penetrated, manipulated, and even destroyed by malevolent intruders. This exposes yet another vulnerability for the tech industry, a meta-vulnerability, really. That vision depends on trust. It requires us to put our faith in self-driving zero-day exploit. It renews fear of an entirely hackable world where our machines can be enlisted against us. It reminds us that the future is a necessarily more vulnerable place. The Vault 7 leak is not the tech industry's fault exactly, but we must ask, at what point will we stop placing our trust in devices, systems, and people that are inherently undeserving of it? Actually, never mind, we're past it already. The most troubling aspect of the latest revelations is that there is no way to protect yourself beyond not buying a smartphone, or at least having any meaningful conversations when you are in the same room with one. These vulnerabilities and cracks are not optional, but woven throughout the fabric of our social and commercial lives. They are coming from inside the house. So, first I'd like to say Jason is obviously a great writer. It's a very well-written article. I guess a couple notes really quickly. I think it's strange talking about how Facebook and Google try to pride themselves as algorithmically pristine information delivery systems when it was proven earlier, I think this year, maybe end of last year, that Facebook was censoring conservative news. And they had to bring in a few people from like Fox News and the Daily Caller to give a conference, or they had some sort of a meeting about how they could do better about not censoring conservative news. So I'm not sure. That just seems strange, especially to mention the fake news mills and virulent troll armies, which I think is the author trying to say the people who got Trump into office, I guess, is kind of that point. I think that was it in terms of notes for that story. Again, very well written. I guess I would say a little disappointing, that whole conclusion of, well, it's too late, it's already happened. I don't necessarily know if that's true. I think if we take that attitude and we don't hold the politicians accountable and the government accountable, then yeah, maybe that's the case. But I mean, you got a blog, buddy. You got a publishable article here that you're getting a lot of reads on. So maybe a little bit more optimism in the Republic would be nice. So that will wrap up our coverage of the initial leaks of these documents and sort of the news media's coverage of them as well. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. I'd be really interested to find out. Are you concerned about this? Do you think it's all a joke? Seems a lot of people I talked to have said, well, we already knew it with the NSA, so who cares if the CIA is doing it? To that, I would just kind of suggest, well, remember, you're paying for all this stuff with your tax dollars. So when the NSA did it the first time, you paid for it, and I'm assuming if they have more code than Facebook, which is what the WikiLeaks document said, that's going to be a pretty expensive operation. So then for the CIA to basically redo that so that they can keep secrets from the NSA because they're bureaucratic rivals, I mean, that's the point that I really have an issue with. Like, I understand the argument of, oh, well, we already know this is happening, so why are you upset? Okay, that being said, I'm upset because I'm paying for it, and I don't want to pay for it twice, because that's just foolish. So let me know what you guys think. I appreciate the listen, and keep on trying to be discerning in what you read in the news. Not everyone is right on one side or wrong on the other side. You just got to try to dig through the stuff and see what you can find, and good luck out there.